According to V8 Sleuth in Australia, the J-Ski of Down Under, Shane Van Gisbergen has received a number of NASCAR Cup Series offers after his absolutely commanding victory at the Chicago Street Course earlier in July. The big question now is, what teams are offering him Cup deals for 2024, presumably? We don't really actually know. The first team that comes to mind is Trackhouse, right? Obviously, it's no secret that he went there and won with him, but it's no secret that they've also looked at potentially starting up a third team. According to an athletic report from earlier in the year, they looked at adding a third car for Corey LaJoie, and obviously it didn't happen because Corey LaJoie's just signed a long-term deal with Spire. But you know Justin Marks' mind is right there. So the question is, would they do that for Shane Van Gisbergen? I assume yes, but there are no charters that are unaccounted for right now. Obviously, there's only 36 charters, and there are none that are knowingly up for sale. So I think you have to look at that number 78 Live Fast Motorsports car. Why? Well, there were some rumors that if Tyler Reddick did not get released from his RCR contract for 2023, that RCR would have put him in that number 78 car. So you know that it is open, in a sense, to being leased out to somebody. And I think that Trackhouse could get a lease deal together to get Shane Van Gisbergen into a chartered car for 2024. They're obviously not going to run an open car for the whole season because the payout from the points fund or from the purse does not make any sense to do that. So you want a chartered car because then you're guaranteed money at the end of the year, where an open car does not do that. So I think that is maybe the first option for them, and obviously the one that I think SVG would want the most because he already seems pretty comfortable with that team, having just won them a race in Chicago, and he'll be back with them next month for the Indianapolis road course. Option number 2 that is on the table, I think you have to look at Cog Racing. Obviously, we know Cog has at least one open seat with the number 31 car as Justin Haley departs for Rick Ware Racing in 2024. They obviously want somebody that brings some sort of funding, and that's why Austin Hill makes total sense to take over that ride next year. But I think that they might have another opening. AJ Allmendinger's number 16 car could potentially be open, and that car is fully funded by Matt Collig and his slew of companies. Why do I think that race is open, or that ride will be open? It's because AJ Allmendinger is only 17 points below the playoff cutoff line right now in the Cup Series, and he's skipping qualifying and practice for the Cup Series this weekend at Richmond and going and racing the Xfinity car at Road America. It makes absolutely no sense when you think about it because he does have a decent shot of making it to the playoffs, especially with 2 road courses and a super speedway still coming up before the playoffs happen, tracks that he's very good on. So I think that his mind and Collig's minds going forward are going to be on getting AJ back to the Xfinity Series. If that happens, that number 16 car is open. We know it can win on road courses, or at least contend for wins. We've seen AJ do that the last 2 years, and obviously he won in 2021, but that was with the Gen 6 car. Having said all that, because that car is fully funded by Matt Collig already, they don't have to worry about SVG bringing money. Obviously, if he does, they're going to be happy to take it. But I do think that that is a ride that could be in play. Could he be open for the 31 car as well? Absolutely. Again, I just know that they are looking for sponsorship for that car, or a driver that brings sponsorship, and I don't think SVG brings enough, at least on a Cup budget, or at all, to make that happen. But an AJ Allmendinger SVG lineup would be pretty solid, if we're being honest. Outside of that, who else could possibly be in play here? Obviously, Haas Racing will likely have an opening with the number 10 car next year. Not sure if he's interested in going to the 10 car. I do think that that's taking a step down from the equipment that he obviously raced at Trackhouse. It's not necessarily race-winning equipment at the moment, but you do have Gene Haas and his very deep pockets there to fund that ride if you need to. It could be in play. Obviously, we keep hearing Michael McDowell's name mentioned, Zane Smith's name mentioned as well, but it sounds like he's going to end up at front row, so there's a chance that Michael McDowell could end up there. It's a big team. Is a team that does get a decent amount of factory support from Ford, his obvious rival in the Australian Supercars Championship. But it is interesting to see what the future is of Haas Racing. Do they stick with Ford? Do they switch to another manufacturer? Does Tony stay in long term? I think he does. So there's a number of factors that do surround that a little bit. Another ride that we know potentially has an opening is the Wood Brothers. Obviously, Harrison Burton is on a year-to-year contract. He does bring a decent amount of budget with Dex Imaging, which is a main reason why he's probably in that car. Still, he has started to run a touch bit better and score some top 10s here and there this season. But Roger Penske does have a strong influence over who goes into that car, and he's obviously already plucked one supercar star in Scott McLaughlin and put him into the IndyCar series. Could he just take Scott's rival in SVG, bring him over and have him in-house essentially at Penske, and put him in the Wood Brothers 21? I think it would be a smart move just from a road course standpoint, because you have a pretty good shot of getting those guys into the playoffs if you can get a win there. Having said that, the Fords continue to struggle, but they are getting a new nose next year when they switch to the new 2024 model year Mustang, which is rolling out. So there is some at least hope for them long-term, potentially. But I do think that's an option they should explore, or that he should explore if they do come calling. Outside of that, there's a few other options that you could maybe look at. Spire will likely have an opening with the number 77 and Ty Dillon departing, but I think that ride is definitely going to Carson Hocevar, at least by the sounds of it, because everybody just keeps saying that he's skipping over the Xfinity Series and moving straight to Cup, and that's really the only Cup ride that makes total sense there. 2311 doesn't really make any sense. People were like, oh, well, they could just start up a third car for him. Charters are not up for sale at the moment, and it's expected the next charter, according to Adam Stern at Sports Business Journal, is going to sell for $30 million. And there's not exactly a ton of people out there right now that are really wanting to pay $30 million unless you're Michael Andretti. And that's a whole nother factor that I'm not sure what's going on there. But Michael Jordan did just sell the Hornets for $3 billion, so $30 million is not exactly a lot to him anymore, but I still don't think that they're going to do it to start up a third car next year. That also require more resources from Toyota, and they're already taking on Legacy Motor Club next year as well, so I don't think that's happening for 2024. One other option that I think is a wild card, but it's one that could possibly happen, and I think you have to go back and look at Richard Childress Racing. Obviously, they already have a strong connection to the Australian supercars, which is why Brody Kostecki is coming over and racing at Indianapolis for them. But if they were already considering basically fielding a third car for Tyler Reddick before they released him and worked out a deal to get him over to 2311 while bringing on Kyle Busch as his replacement, I do think that they could work out a deal with that 78 Live Fast team, much like I said with Trackhouse, where they could lease the charter and put SVG in the car for 2024. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that it gives you a really good shot of getting two cars into the playoffs. Obviously, we know Chevys are strong on road courses. That 8 car last year won 2 races on road courses. Kyle Busch has been a strong contender this year. Most tracks that they've gone to, including road courses, getting SVG into that car full time maybe wouldn't be a bad idea. And it could potentially set up a succession plan for Austin Dillon, who currently sits 30th in points. And yeah, I think that it's certainly something that should be explored if you're Richard Childress. I don't know, again, budget-wise, sponsorship-wise, where all of that would come from, but it is an option that's on the table. Obviously, you can take out Hendrick, Penske's main team, Joe Gibbs Racing. Those are all out. Those seats are accounted for, or they have drivers that are already going to be lined up that they've put a lot of money into that they would like to see succeed. So, where do you think SVG lands at in 2024, and what team? Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at BreakHardBlog.